Hi, Casey. Maybe?
Yes.
Okay, I assume that's a yes. So, I did not grade this week's or this past week's performance. One, because it was finals week and I was busy. But second, everyone did super potato, and everyone knows this. So it would have been a waste of time because everyone got like negative points last week. So that last week didn't happen. However, what that does mean though is we have to make it up this week. Last week didn't happen indeed. So, but we are going to clear up some things about the 35 and 65 phase. Get that set off, and yeah. So, I did watch over some of the videos though, or some of the events anyway. Though I didn't grade them. But so looking at the overall videos, are 90% are pretty good. I don't see any particular issues with 90%. 65%, obviously we can do better, but that's still coming along pretty decent. Um, so anyway, just going over. Now the positions are going to change a little bit. Basically, what's happening is the Casey is no longer going to be range. He's going to be melee now. So he's going to be 6 red. So if you can hear me, we're now 6 red position. And we're basically in that spot. The 6 blue person, I haven't decided yet who's going to be. Is most likely going to be Mia. Actually, let me go over positions real quick, just so everyone knows what dot they are. So 1 blue is me, 2 blue is Spike, 3 blue is Hugh, 4 blue is probably Beb, 5 blue is probably Yuya, and 6 blue is Gina. 1 red is Myung, 2 red is Ray, 3 red is Cataracts, 4 red is Lux, 5 red is Lucia, and 6 red will be Casey. So just keep that in mind for your positions. Again, I may change positions, but it will probably be somewhere along those lines for your actual positions. So going over, no change necessarily for 90% gear positions. It's still going to be Lux, Cataracts, and Lucia baiting this. The range move out of the way. Pew will move to the side. Beb, you basically get the DPS here because you went in the way to begin with. And Spike, same thing. Basically, you're just kind of moving over there. Normally in actual runs, you kind of just book it all the way here. But you can take your time. You have the entirety of the phase to get there, so there's no rush to get there yet. Gina DPS is at stuff, and Yu will DPS here. So no real change there. In phase position, it will look just like how it has in the past. The only difference is that Yu just makes sure that you are DPSing. I should move this later, and I'll move it later on. But you're DPSing past the line. That way, this little center lane here is free for Gina to walk in, getting ready for blue phase. So that's the main thing. But here you can see Spike is out here already DPSing on the outer edge here, while me and Cadex were able to use the inner circle to do the ball drive. So again, that's no different than previous. Once we get into the blue phase, slightly different, or not slightly, yeah, slightly different positions for the baits. So Spike is going to bait this right one here. Gina is going to bait the center one, and Yuya will bait the far left one. It looks mixed up right now, but that was what I had in my head. It doesn't really matter to me where you go, but ideally speaking, this one should be Gina, and this one should be Yuya. So I'll change the numbers later, but that makes the most sense to me. So basically, once we get into phase, as Spike is moving up here, all he does is pop up here. Keep in mind for the 90%, you don't have to put him on the line. In fact, it's more preferred if you can push him back a little bit, just to give the ball driver a little bit more room to maneuver. At 65% phase, the blue gears or the blue baiters are going to put the things close to the line for other reasons. But for the 90% phase, it is actually preferred if you kind of bait a little bit further out, just to give more room. As we are bar driving this. No change for Pew and Beb. There's the DPSing. Um, Myung Zoi moved over, and Karax, same as you probably realized, you're just kind of chilling out here, waiting for this to finish, which is intended. So you're just kind of waiting until this part finishes, and then Ray moves over, and then Karax can move in there in that slot there. So, all right. Okay, so then this is going to be when we start the blue phase ball driving. So here would be Gina and Casey already moving over, doing their thing. Again, here, you just cut out an outside edge. Uh, Basically, just avoid them. They're going to be moving over, so just don't be in their way. Likewise, I'll be over here, and I'll make sure I avoid them as well once they get closer to me. Beb, can basically DPS in the exact same spot you were. P will basically DPS almost the exact same spot he was as well. This time, Spike has already moved over to his original DPS position. So basically, Spike was up here baiting the gear, and he's going to make the long trek, the long way around to get to his 4 o'clock position where he DPSs for the fight. Myung has already moved over to 6 o'clock. Kadax has moved in, and Ray has moved over. So, yep, this should be okay. The only thing here is if it's done correctly, Ray, just make sure that you are a little bit closer, just so you don't accidentally pull the ball toward you. But Casey should be in position enough, and it should be up here that shouldn't be an issue. But just be mindful of that. Other than that, I don't see any issues in the 90% phase. Phase end, basically, this is what it would look like for your meter positions. Yeah, so basically what I've done here is I've used these lines to show where you and your partner can use to organize yourself in terms of positions. And keep in mind, it is slightly altered. So, like, usually Lux and Pew might have been at 6 o'clock here to get their meters. But here I moved them over, and I moved Catarax and Spike over to the 3 o'clock line, simply because when this is going down, Myung is technically still going to be here. So, to avoid that entirely, you can pre-position yourself at 3 o'clock line. No one should be there. So, if you follow this rough pattern, no one should interfere with being in your way for the most part. Again, this is both Sarah and Beb. This is going to be Yuya and Casey, and Gina's over here. So, okay, so 65% phase, this is where it gets more interesting. So when we go into phase, basically what you'll notice here is that, again, we have a slightly different configuration. So before, Spike was the one who baited this one. But instead, because we have Yuya here, what's going to happen is I'm going to bait this one, because I was already over here. Gina will bait this one, and Yuya will bait this one. And again, we're baiting this one right on, or right past the line here, to make sure they're beyond that. Spike, what you'll do is you actually walk forward into the circle to make sure that you're not going to accidentally bait a gear out this direction. Ray has moved back. Again, this is very important to allow Myung to scoot over, because Myung is going to be basically going from 12 to 3, so she doesn't get hit by the gears. So make sure you move back right away. Don't SS, walk out, Ray, simply because I'll be right behind you if you SS right into me, and that's going to be terrible news. So make sure that I've moved out of your way, then walk out. So be calm about it. Casey would have moved back. Beb basically has moved outward. Technically, Beb is ranged, so he's actually over here. But what you want to do, Beb, is make sure you walk inward and stay around the 9 o'clock line. This is so you don't accidentally bait a red gear off in this direction. If you do, that could be very bad for us. So all you're going to do is some DPSing over here. So just walk in and chill out right here at 9. That way, you won't accidentally bait gears. Same thing with Pew. He's basically walking inward to the boss. Roughly 10 meters-ish is where this line is going to be. To chill out, just to make sure that this bait here is going to be done successfully. Again, keep in mind that we are baiting right past this line, which is roughly 16-ish meters. So again, range is very important when you're blue, to make sure you're walking inward to around 10-meter line, which is about 2 steps inward from the outer ring here. And then the melee baiters, same as before, Catarax, Lux, and Lucio. So no difference there. Okay, so the gears will get shot out like this. Myung is avoiding that. Then she'll go back to her spot. So before we go here, so Ray, just wait until Myung has gotten back to 12, then you come in. Don't rush in or stuff. Myung is going to be coming this way. You don't want to bump into her. So wait for it to pass, then go in. Or as before, you just come around and come in that way. Alright, so at 65% phase, one of the most important things, because we are ball driving, is we do need to block these gears. So what's happening here is me and Calax have already set up for our first ball drive. Right, Spike is over here. Right, so he moves back up here to DPS again, like he did in 90% phase. Casey's over here, gonna bait the ball and play with it for a bit for this phase. Pew and Beb, you're gonna be DPSing here. Keep in mind, just be careful that you're avoiding any of the ball driving that might be coming in your area. Nothing should happen at 90%, 65% phase in red. So you can basically DPS here in this little quadrant here for free. Just be careful of each other. Same thing with Gina. Gina's going to basically be DPSing this point. She'll make her way over to Casey soon, but she has entirely the phase to do that, so there's no rush here. And same thing with Yuya, he's chilling out back here. In this particular case, it's important that Yuya, Beb, and Pew are out the outer edge. This will allow Gina free range to walk in, same thing as before for easy ball drive access. If you're inward there, then obviously you might bump, and we want to avoid that at all costs. So this way Gina can make sure that she walks inward toward the boss in this lane here, instead of going around to avoid that. The same thing here. There should be anyone in this path here. So for me and Cax to get this one for free. Notice that this position, Lucir has already moved over, Lux has moved over, and Ray has moved over. For the meta players when they get into position, you have until he does the punishment to be in position. However, for until it gets really clean, I do want them in position waiting. It is a DPS loss, yes, but I want to make sure everyone has a good understanding of how this mechanic works and how much time they need to get there. Since basically what you have to make sure you do is you can't just book it there. Lucia in particular, you have to be very careful when you navigate outward. Because you baited this one, there's going to be, you'll be here technically, Lucia. There's going to be Pew, Beb, and Yuya, and maybe Gina in your way from your trek from here to here. If you don't trust, go on the very outer edge, and you shouldn't have any issues getting there. Do not go in the inner part. Technically, there may not be too much people in your way, but honestly, because you're out here, it really is just safer to take this path to get here. Likewise for Lux would have been the same thing. He's baiting this one. He would basically take the long way around to make sure he's not being in the way, because the ball driving is still going along this phase here, this path here. And he'll come here. Ray, what you will do is you keep DPSing, wait for me and Cadax to pass you, then go into your spot. You have the closest distance from here to here, and you have the entirety of the phase to get there. So you have the easiest time. You can get there in like 5 seconds. But just wait for me and Cadax to move to position 2, then move in there. If you move too early, what will happen is you'll bump into Myung, me, or Cadax in the way to get there. So just wait for us to pass in second position. When me and Cadax are over here-ish, then you should have free range to just go straight back. Just be careful of backslash. And anything else? Yeah. So this is what your positions will look for the 65% phase in the first half. Again, here you can see that all the melee are here to block it, and so forth. Now, there's going to be one potential change, and there's 2 variations for this. In the 65% phase, because the flamethrower happened at the same time as the pushback, right? We have to do something with the flamethrower. So there's 2 variations. This is variation 1, where basically what we do is we have Myung shoot the flamethrower at the 2 o'clock line. That's what I'm talking about, Myung. That's why I'm giving stuff for everyone's positions. So making sure stuff. Now granted, Lux isn't here, so he's missing out on the support and stuff. I'm telling him what not to do. So I have to make sure I tell him before stuff. But anyway. So this is one variation. I think this is probably going to be the easiest way to deal with this. Is where what will happen is Myung will aim the laser or the fire at the 2 o'clock line. Myung, there's a dot here and a line. It's very easy to know where this one is, the 2 o'clock. So you just pop over and fire this way. And as long as this one is placed well, which is mine, this thing shouldn't be in the way. Keep in mind, even if the gear gets hit by the flame, as long as you don't get hit by the flame as a person, that's what matters the most. Um, yeah.
Wait a second, hold on. So, pretty much at the start of 65, I'm at 12, but then I
Mhm.
go to 3,
Yep.
and then right before he does the flamethrower, I go to
So,
2.
so what you do, Myung, is when the phase starts, right? This is what it looks like when you're uh, at the very, very beginning of the fight. You're tanking over here. You move it to 3, right? You
Yeah,
avoid the little things. You go back to 12 o'clock. You're DPSing
yeah.
for 3 attacks. You're taking the shotgun here. You're taking the front back. You're taking the punishment, the
Well,
CC
that's what
part.
I mean. When he's about the flamethrower, I move to 2, right?
When he's CCing, you will be moving over. So doing a CC
Oh,
animation is when you move over. Now, granted,
okay. That makes
um,
sense.
yes, because right after CC is flamethrower, yeah?
I get it.
Yes. So when he's CCing, now granted, we should have enough people that CC, but your main job, Myung, is to position yourself so when flamethrower starts, you're flaming it right at 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Now, what this means, though, is if we do this method, Spike will have to move over. And this should be no problem because he can move over whenever he wants. Um, and he'll move over to around 3 o'clock ish. Same thing for me, I'll make sure I move over to the side to avoid getting hit by this. Keep in mind, though, because I'm ball driving, I'm moving over here anyway. So the only one who's any chance of getting hit by this is Spike. So don't die, Spike. Move.
Spike's got this.
Yeah. Other than that, it should be pretty easy. Uh, Ray and Lux, they just have to make sure that they wait for this thing to finish before they move in position. Keep in mind, there's going to be an icicle right after this anyway, so it's not too important. Um, so they can take their time here. You know, once everyone gets better at positioning and so forth, um, just be a little bit more clean. But for now, just chill out. All right. So now that's finished, there's gonna be an ice. We all sheath in position. This is not a remark, so it's fine. And then we hit into the blue phase. So at this point, the melee will eventually got in their way back. Again, take your time. You have all the time in the world to get there. Myung will have moved over to 6 o'clock. Right. So from here, she moves over. Keep in mind though, if we do this good, there should be no one in melee range. Yeah. Look at this. If everyone's doing what they're supposed to, no one's here. So what that means, Myung, is you should be able to just walk pop, 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 to 6 o'clock. There should not be anyone in your way. Because
Okay.
all the melees were here, I made the other melee here, the other melee is ball driving here, there should be no one coming into you. So at the end of 65% red phase, there shouldn't be anyone here, you should be able to freely go in there.
Okay.
Once Myung has gotten into 6 o'clock, then Cataracts, Lux, Ray, and Lucira can get into the little home positions. Again, be very mindful, look around, making sure when you walk there, you aren't going to be in anyone's way in terms of getting there. Um, in this case, the ones who are most at risk are Ray and Cataracts, simply because the missiles is going to be here or here, so you may be, or will likely be in their way, the ball driver's way, and Gina and Casey. So be very careful. Take the long way around if you must, but do not be in the way to for this phase. Keep in mind that's extra dangerous for Reds because Reds, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Reds bait the direction of the ball. So it's very important that you are not anywhere near that ball. I don't care if you AFK over here to make sure you dodge it. Do not be next to that ball because guess what happens if the ball is right next to you? It goes into the boss, and we all see what happens when the ball goes on Myung and everyone
But
else.
oh,
We
it
lose.
hits me and then we die.
Yes. So it's very important that you avoid this. Keep in mind in this picture, the missile is in the top left corner. So in this variation, uh, Cataracts and Ray are safe. Basically, this is on this end of the room. They can walk into position right away, no problems. However, if the missile was here, then what's going to happen is the ball driving phase happens on this end, In this case, Ray, you cannot go straight through. Ray will have to take the long way around with Lux to get into position. And basically, what you'll do, Ray, is from here, take the long way, and then come in. Because this entire pathway from here to here to here is ball driving zone. So if you try and cross over, uh, you'll lose. Keep in mind, though, it is possible if you're fast to get there quickly, but it takes some practice and takes everyone to get used to the positions to get there quickly for you to get there before the phase starts. However, I do imagine that once everyone does get good, you should be able to get there right before the phase starts and start DPSing anyway. But for now, we'll take the safer approach and make sure you take the long way around to get into your position. You will have to cross over me and Cataracts, so be very careful. Make sure there's an opening first before you go through. Um, what else is there? Q's position hasn't changed. Beb, your position hasn't changed. You're still basically stuck to this little quadrant here, DPSing. One extra detail here is because blue, because there's going to be ball drivers in your way, potentially, um, just chill out. Just wait, DPS on this side. Make sure that Gina, who people with marks, have clean access to go into the normal path. Yeah. Yuya, same as stuff. If the ball happens to be on this end and goes here, just move out of the way, move over to the side. Big break, easy. And then this point spike from here, you're going to hurry over back to your 4 o'clock position DPS, simply because there's going to be no mechs that happen that are required to be here anymore because all the action's happening at the 12 o'clock half at the 6% blue phase. So you'd be DPSing in this quadrant here. And then X-Ray, Cataracts, Lux, Osira, go for it. Yeah. So this is what the 65% blue phase would look like. If everyone's in position, again, we have a nice clear pathway here. The only ones who have to worry again would be Yuya, in case the missile's on this side, and Beb, in case the bubble is on this side. If it switches over to this one, not too much of an issue. This one, Myung, for this flamethrower, you do not turn it over at 2 o'clock. You shoot the flame over here at 6 o'clock. Yeah.
Blue's real easy. Okay.
Yes. So it's only in the beginning part of red that we have to do this because there's gears and people in the way. This one, there isn't. This is just like the 90% blue phase where you shoot it off here. So it's exactly the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I got it.
Yep. Spike and Pew, again, remember that Myung is shooting the flame this direction, so just if you stick to your positions, you won't get hit. So basically right here and right here. Phase ends, basically we go back to our original positions. Everyone should have moved out. This will give Myung easy time to move around the boss to get back to 12 o'clock. But everyone else should be at their immediate positions, getting marks. Again, we use same position, little clock positions that we did for the 9% phase to avoid confusion and bumping into each other. There should be easy path to get into your immediate positions wherever you were. So once we hit 35% phase, the start of it will look exactly like 65%. So the gear placement exactly the same. Even this red phase is going to look exactly the same. Cameo. So you still shoot it off in the corner here. However, at 35% blue phase, it's going to be different. You're going to shoot and tank at 4.
Okay.
So basically, remember that once blue phase starts, there's going to be a laser cross,
laser
right?
death, and if I touch it, I die.
Exactly. So right after the icicle, Mian has to make sure you move to 4 o'clock, which is to the right of you. And you're going to tank from here. No difference in your tanking. Basically, you just tank here. The flamethrower shoot here. You don't need to worry about it. However, what this does mean is that I looked at the videos, and for the most part, we can only have 4 melees when this is going down. Maybe you could squeeze 2, but that's so risky that it really isn't worth it, especially if we're hitting 35% phase. And so only 2 melees will be able to DPS freely, other than Myung. I have it said right now that those 2 melees who are DPSing are going to be Ray and Losira. Cataracts and Lux, you guys will be AFK. There's not going to be any space for you to DPS because of this cross line. So just chill out in the corner, heal up, get ready to do big deeps. Well, when we have to maximize the DPS, we'll do those kind of things. But for now, I want this to happen, go through, just to make sure we can get this phase down. If it looks clean, then we can optimize, like changing positions up, scooting people over, and try and fit more people with the DPS at this phase. But I do want to make sure that we can get through this without issue. Um, yeah, but I like the ideas. So those kind of min-maxing stuff is going to be important once we get the 0% phase down. So anyway, so in this configuration, the missile is going to be in the top left corner, right? And Myung is going to always go to the 4 o'clock quadrant. What this means is, Spike, you're DPSing over here. You need to make sure you're DPSing right over here, not at 3 o'clock because you're going to die from laser, but right in this little empty safe pizza here. And you're just going to chill out at DPS from this point. Again, be very careful. Don't, be tempted to DPS here because flamethrower will be in your face and you'll die. So DPS here. Cataracts, you get the easy life. You'll notice I put Cataracts way at the edge here. The reason for this is that because you can't DPS anyway, for the most part, because Myung is going to be right in your face, chill out here, because what's going to happen is if you stand right here, punishment and backslash and everything else will not hit you. So instead of being anywhere closer, which you would get hit by attacks, you can literally just wait here and chill, because you can DPS, so no point in getting hit by attacks. Here you're completely safe from all attacks from basic rotation. Range players, in particular, the CCs are going to be all on the range players for the most part. We have Losur and stuff and Myung here to help. For range players, you are going to have to make sure you hit that CC, because we are having at least 4 people on the edges who won't be able to hit the CC. I'll be over here in the quadrant corner here. Lux will be on the edge, same thing like Cataracts. He gets the easy life. You basically get to chill and wait for phase finishes. At this point, Gina and Casey will be doing the mini ball drive in the quadrant. Again, the pattern that I've seen looks really well is kind of like a triangle or a square. Keep in mind that your colors have swapped at this point. So, yeah. So the driver and the stuff arcs can be swapped. That shouldn't be an issue, but basically you have this entire quadrant to do this little thing. Keep in mind there may be a gear in your area here, so be careful about how you make your pattern, and so forth. You may want to make like a mini triangle. I haven't not gonna set it yet until we get there and get more practice with it. And I can see more of how well it works. But I think you should be able to manage okay. The 3 range players, Pew, Beb, and Yuya. Yuya, no matter what happens, you will always move over to the bottom left quadrant, because that way, no matter what happens, you will never be in the quadrant that has the missile. So Yuya will always move over to the bottom left corner and DPS here. Beb will have moved over to the line, and Pew would move on the side. This is important to keep this formation, simply because we need to fit 3 range players back here. So as long as Beb is right on the line, Pew is in between that, and Yuya is in between that, you should have a nice, easy. You should have lots of space. You should be able to dodge punishment with this and so forth. Shouldn't be any issues there. Who else I missed? Okay. So in this configuration, this is how it would go. Now the second configuration is that the missile is on the top right corner. Now this changes a little bit. So here you can see Losira, Yuya, Beb, and Spike. They're still in the bottom left quadrant. That hasn't changed. Kadak is still AFKing in the bottom here. Spike is still DPSing this little pizza here. However, what has changed is that instead of DPSing from here, what Ray did was she made sure that she moved over to the top left quadrant. So you have to make sure that you're not in the quadrant that has a missile ray. If you do, you're going to be squashed in their space, and that's going to make it very hard to ball drive for a lot of reasons. So be careful. Make sure you've moved over to the left quadrant if the missile is in top right quadrant. I will do the same thing as you. I'll basically be moving over, and I'm pretty sure I'll tell you too to move as I'm moving over to this other quadrant. If Lux can make it, Lux can basically move over to get to this quadrant and chill out behind Spike. Otherwise, he can stay in this corner here. There won't be much issues for that. And that will give this entire quadrant, again, open space for Gina and Casey to do their 3 drives to get the thing ready for it. So ideally, those Lux will move over here and chill out on this side if possible. But other than that, the configuration is very similar. The only difference again, me and Ray moved over, and Lux ideally moves over to the other quadrant. After this is done, all things are finished. Notice that you're going to be in odd positions. Until I see the timing of how much time people have to get into position, don't worry about getting in positions. Get to your meter positions at this time. So use wherever position you're at to figure out your meter positions. I know me and Ray can do this no problem because we're the same line, but everyone else, just wherever you happen to be at this phase finish, make sure you're at the right meter. Keep in mind though that the colors aren't going to matter too much because we're not going to be doing mechs with them. However, we do want to make sure we get the right colors so that way when we go into our actual positions, we will still keep the opposite color pattern. Um, and so when we do have to touch for missiles, we will still, stuck together. If people mess up the colors, what will happen is they will have same color with their partner, and when they go to touch, they will bounce off each other, which will cause unnecessary chaos. And it is possible to wipe at the below 10% phase because of something like this. So do not take it for granted. It's not an automatic wipe or anything if you screw up your colors, but do not screw up colors because our life will be a lot more difficult than it has to be when we get there. So be very careful that you get your colors and go in. From this point onward, though, it's going to be just as before. We'll all be back in positions, and the final 10% phase will look exactly like how the beginning was in this configuration where we DPS to the end. Um, from this point onward, though, the only thing that's going to kill you or wipe us is going to be base rotation or missiles. So the missile phase, again, still hurts a lot. It still gives deep wound and whatever. There's no extra mechanics. There's no super enrage or anything like that. He will just keep doing that till the end. So we have that time to finish it off. Yeah. Any questions? Suggestion?
I have a question.
Yes.
Does this mean Myung will have to hum and block for her party, or is that on its own?
For which part?
The whole fight.
Mia will have to hum and block. But always be on your own anyway, but Mia will have to hum and block. This is okay only because Myung, when you do Star Strike, basically when you're moving out, you just hit H and block when you're walking out.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I'll have to time it because if I stop for a split second, I'm gonna get knocked back.
Yes. But I'm pretty sure you can handle this. So.
I believe in you, Myung. So does Xena.
Your cat does too. I was like, kitty!
So there is one other configuration we could do for this one. Again, I think this is probably the easiest in terms of stuff. However, the other option is instead of having Myung directed at 2 o'clock, he keeps it at 12, but what happens is we bait the gears off to the side here. And basically what would have to happen is number 2, Ray, would have to make sure that even though the gear is going to be in this path of the flame, that as long as your body is not there, you'll be okay. So you'd be off at the angle here. So this is another way we can handle the flame thing. So this would make it easier for Myung, but it makes it a little bit different for debaters and for Ray to make sure.
Well, either way, it's pretty easy.
Yes.
I'm good with clock positions.
Yes. I think this way is a lot better for a lot of more reasons because it's more symmetrical and it's easy to figure out. However, because what can happen is if we screw this method up, if this gear is too close here, then Ray is going to eat flame to her face. That being said, Ray is also a BM. So just how, because Myung can survive the entirety of the flamethrower, so can Ray. Ray has the same skill set. So we don't want to deal with that, of course. Ray wouldn't want to deal with that. But technically they both have the same amount of iframes, same skill set. So both of them could be in the flame and survive the entirety of the flamethrower phase. So Just make sure you have your iframes ready when it's going down. You should, because you spend the entire time walking here.
Mhm.
Yeah. Also, another hint for everyone else who is running to positions: if you take the outer lane here, you won't get hit by anything. Backslash, punishments, all those skills do not reach at the edge of the map. So if you try and take the shortcut, you have to be iframing on your own as you walk to your position. But if you take the long way and take it easy, you won't get hit by anything, and you'll be able to get to your position without issue. The only thing you have to worry about is other people, but everyone should be already moving to their own original spot when it's going down. So, but we're gonna try this first. Again, if this is not working, if there's too many issues, we may change it to this, but hopefully we don't need to. So, um, there is a video part in this part here. So, 35%. Okay, so where's the wrong core? Okay, so here, this one. So in this case, they are shooting off in the top left corner at the 10 o'clock stuff. You'll be basically shooting it off on the top right. So, but otherwise, you can see that they're shooting off at an angle here. Okay. Well, actually, no, they are doing it 2 o'clock, so it'll cook it from this angle. So we'll skip over 35% phase real quick. Okay, so going to phase. Notice everyone, the blues are a little bit closer here to make sure they can push it. The reds are further back. Casey and Cadillacs will be getting to their bubbles with their associate help. This would have been Casey here. Here's me and Cataracts doing this thing here. At this time, all of the melees are going into position up here to get into position. You can see them running there to block their missile or gear. The remaining people are here to CC. Now, one thing I did forget to mention is, again, for this phase, the range players are going to have to CC. Because all the melee are up here going to block the gears, the 4 range must hit their CC. So Yu has to hit one of his little ghetto knockdowns. You know, the FMs have to hit their CCs. The 3 of them. That in itself, the 4 range have enough CCs to cover everything. But keep in mind that they really have to make sure they hit it. We don't want to be getting hit by unnecessary AoE attacks here. To make sure we have enough HP to survive the next part of the phase. So, range have a really easy time in this fight. So they have to hit the CC, no matter what. Okay, so here, this is gonna stuff. You see how they got pushed back here, right? But the gears stay on the map. Now they're all booking into their positions. They're moving, trying to get out of the way here, you know, for the ball drivers. Again, you can see this pathway is nice and clean, yeah? Nice and clean for ball drivers. Okay. Alright, so they're going here. Again, if you have time, melee can try to get back in position, but they're getting ready for this phase here. So when that part's going down after the icicle, what your main concern is to make sure you're going to the right quadrant, right? So here, this is nice because you see in this point of view, there's no one in the quadrant, right? Everyone was successfully able to move over to a different quadrant. So here they're doing the little triangle ball drive here. Again, one extra detail is, again, you still have to dodge the ring missile punishments when this is going on. So that is one extra detail you have to watch out for. But other than that, that's probably the only difficult part about this. Again, all his basic attacks are still going on. The punishments and everything else, so everyone's still doing that. CCs still have to go on. Again, mostly going to be range for this. Here's, you can see Myung being here. This is like Spike or something, right? DPSing from the corner there. This is going to go through. That gear comes in. At this point, everyone has to move into positions. See how everyone's adjusting their positions to make sure the right meters. Again, you're not going to be at the right sides and so forth because you were in your quadrant. So just make sure wherever quadrant you happen to be in, that you're at the right meter position at least. So when this goes down, you can then move back into position. Okay. And then at this point now you start moving back into positions. Again, be very careful, like you saw there, because they're all going the same stuff, they bump into each other. Be careful with that. Casually walk in. If you see opening to dash in, do it. But make sure you don't all like rush in there, so we don't have like circus. Right? So melees in particular, get in there quickly, but don't get in there and bump someone. Make sure you're in your lane before you dash in. Right? So as long as you're in your assigned lane, you can dash in without issue, along the ones in front of you. And from here on, you can see everyone's in position again. And now we're gonna finish off the fight here. Alright. And that's it for that part. So again, any questions about 35%, 65% phase until the end? About how we're handling the gears, how to hang the mechs, positions, issues that you see happening, anything you see that could go wrong. Alright. So that's the main things for the mechs for boss 1. After we can get through 35% phase, so we can basically do 35% phase, no issue, and so forth. From that point onward, we'll see how much DPS we're missing. I do expect us to be missing DPS. If we do it this way and everyone's being extra cautious, we will be low on DPS, 100%. However, everyone does have the gear and so forth to hit the 3 million mark per person. Now, granted, some players are going to be off doing, mechs and so forth and whatever, but most players in the raid can't do more than 3 million anyway. I think aside from 1 or 2 cases, everyone can at least parse 4 to 5 million each. I have seen when I look at the videos that some players have really good performance one run, like they were doing 4 mil. The next one they're doing like 3.1. And a lot of this difference comes from where people are in their way, where people are slow to move, did people get bumped, are people trying to take over mechs or cover mechs for someone who was dead, and those kind of issues. So for everyone to do the maximum DPS, it is very important that, again, no one dies. We absolutely 100% cannot let anyone die. We won't simply not have the DPS if people are dead when going on to this phase. Which is a good thing to show here. So this was from last week, right? This was our 30% run. So let's make this bigger. So right now, when you look at the timer and so forth. Now, one thing to note about this boss is that his mech damage is backloaded, right? So 90% phase, he would do 10%, 65% phase, he does 14, and then at the 35% phase, he does 18% mech damage. So we will be behind the DPS meter all the way up until about here-ish range. Once we get here, this is what will determine if we can make it or not. I mean, you know, mix it on.
Gina, your picture makes me giggle.
It's judging the DPS, what do you mean?
It's like so retarded. His eyes just pop out like.
Anyway, back to the important part.
Leah.
Notice here again, when we hit that stuff, it got closer. So looking at, if we base our entire DPS on this one, we have to, once all the mech phase is completed, we have to make up about, what was it called? 12 billion in 5 minutes, which roughly makes it about 3.8 mil per person. That was assuming if we went on the final end of the DPS charts with the DPS that we saw here. Now granted, notice that the DPS, once we got this point, was a lot different than our normal DPS in other runs.
Gina,
So
Casey's
people did-
dead.
Yes, anyway. So, that is very important to know. Again here, this thing is because we failed the 65% phase, so we missed 7% mech damage, and we weren't able to hit 35% because of that, which is 18% mech damage. So his true a rage bar would have been roughly, if we kept with this DPS at the end of phase, which is very low for this, we would have been short about 7%. So again, this is kind of shows you why everyone needs to be alive at this point, the entire fight, if we
And
want to get
not
this done.
DC'd.
And not DC. That's not Alex's fault. So that being said, because of how this boss is organized and because there's such uh not favoritism, but because range have such an easy life here, um range DPSers are going to have a what's the word called? Higher expectation of DPS simply because of how this boss is organized is basically 4 range players can DPS the entirety of this fight without issue. And even then, technically I could make Gina not do the mechs and so forth, and I could technically have, a lot, basically 4 range players at free DPSing the entire fight. Spike, Pew, Beb, and Yuya. So those 4 players are free DPSing basically the entire fight, for the most part. Myung is going to be on DPS. Ray and Lucia have extremely high uptime, except for one phase when you have to push the gear out. Cadax is going to have minor DPS because he's doing mech similarly with Lux. Lux is going to be on the corner as well. I will have low DPS. Casey low DPS. And so forth. So because we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people who have significant downtime in this part, basically the downtime that those 4 players are going to be put onto the 4 range players to make up the difference. So even though the minimum is about 3.2-ish million each, because of how this boss is organized and because of the mix, the DPS minimum for other players is not equal. So even though 3.3 or 3.2 million is tactical minimum per person, the true minimum per each individual is different. So I'm expecting range players to be in the 3.5 to 4 million range on boss. So when we go into this thing here, you're at 3.5. Now you can see here, even in this freeze frame, like Pew here is at 3.499, right? So he's right what I expect. Granted, we have other people dead and it's not perfect and so forth, no soberins or whatever. But this is roughly what I'm going to expect for range players to hit 3.5 to 4 million while we're in the fight, staining. Mian, I'm expecting 3.5 to 4 million. Your tank, so you have a little bit lower. Ray, have higher expectation. You're going to be 4 million because you're BM. Gina, you do what Gina does Gina things, does big deeps while doing mechs. And Lucia, Lux, both of you are expecting 3.5 at least each. That should be okay. I've looked at a lot of the streams and both of you can hit 3.5 without much issue. Like even here, Lux is at 3.4, so 3.5 isn't an issue over there. Spike, yeah, try your best. Do as much damage as you possibly can. Me and Casey, depending on our mechs and so forth, because our mechs take priority, still expecting about 2 mil each. If we can do 2 mil each with stuff, that would be good. Granted, the mechs take priority over everything else. So, Cadax, I'm expecting 2.5 from you. Cadax has a lot of downtime because he's ball driving for all the phases, and even at the 35% phase, AFK DPS. But I think 2.5 to 3 is pretty reasonable. Nuts of Ray, Lux, Cadax. So, yeah. Alright. So that's the rough expectations of your DPS. So while we're going tomorrow, while we're if we're finding our mechs, practicing and so forth, all the other players are gonna work hard to try and optimize their DPS in one way they can. Mechs take priority beyond anything else. But if we can start seeing people hitting those numbers and so forth, we'll be okay. So if everyone hits those numbers that I gave to everyone, we will be okay. We will clear this thing, in the rage timer. If people are low though and they're not hitting the DPS requirement, we are going to have some issues there. At the very worst case, I'll have to replace the low DPS players with a stronger DPS. However, I really don't want to do that if possible, But if it becomes a consistent issue where we keep hitting 35% or below and we're not hitting the DPS marks, I am unfortunately going to have to replace players for more DPS and so forth. So, telling everyone that now, I've seen everyone's stuff. I don't see any particular issues in performance or whatever. But because we're getting close to the end phase here, this is when we're going to have to be really strict with DPS and mechs and performance. Since, it is entirely possible for us to clear it next week if we got this part down quickly. If not, then it'll have to be the week after. So we are getting very close. And if we are getting to that phase without enough DPS, and even with tweaking positions up to optimize DPS and whatever, and it's still not enough, I'm going to have to look for more stronger DPSers. So, yeah. So don't worry too much, but do try your best. Try your best. Yep. But don't die. Oh yeah, that reminds me one thing. So for the tryouts, because we're getting to a different part of progression, at this point, no one should be dying to base rotation and so forth. When I grade the points for this coming week, what's going to happen is I'm going to do -3 points if you die before phase. So if you're dying to basic rotation, that'll be a -3 points. Okay. I'll also be looking at people who are, if they're hitting their DPS marks. So there's potential to earn more points if you are hitting or exceeding your DPS mark that I gave everyone. So I'll probably have it written out at some point so you know exactly how much DPS I'm expecting from each player. And so forth. So if I see the end of phase and you're hitting that DPS mark, there's probably chance for more points and so forth. Since that means you are basically putting your weight for the most part. Keep in mind that the players who aren't on the board can't get the bonus points from that because I can't see it. It is what it is. So basically, only the players who are on the board and are hitting the DPS mark will be getting the extra points. So that should be a little bit more fair. That even if you are low DPS, if you're not hitting your DPS mark like you're supposed to, then you're not going to get bonus credit for that. So it will be a little bit harsher in that case. Mech damage fail is still -2 points, and mech completion is still +1 point. So that hasn't changed. But if it does come down to like a DPS issue or a mech issue, these kind of last few, not great. Tomorrow's grading should help me make a decision on who I would have to cut or replace if people are performing like they should. So. No.
We
Gina
live in hard
does mech
times.
and top DPS. Basically, Gina would have to be. Everyone would have to do 6 million each for me to even consider.
Why are you like this?
So doesn't that mean everyone but Gina is kicked from the raid?
No, if everyone's doing 6 million each, we're like the best ever because no clan is doing 6 million each for the top 6. There's some people doing more than 6 mil, but all top 6 doing over 6 mil each in NA, I have not seen that yet. So.
Everyone reroll Archer.
True. We all
No. It's not as what you think it is. It is not what you think it is. You will not do the damage you think you're gonna do with being 6 archers. Go BM.
But then it'll be more fun.
We're gonna lag each other out, and it's gonna be great.
Everyone be
touching
touching each other and bursting each other's fireworks. So fun!
But you can only have one fireworks in the boss at once.
Literally, whoever gets it off at the start is a fucking MVP. Let's just say that.
The other five is trash.
Whoever gets it off at the start, you're
Gina
MVP.
Gina pulls with it.
Fuck y'all, my fireworks! My damage!
They're like, all right, Gina, start to fight. So, but anyway, so that's the main thing I want to say about for tomorrow. Again, if you have any concerns, about DPS, about mechs or anything else, you can message me, and we can work something out. The other thing is, well, I don't expect anyone to legitimately do this. If you are thinking of rerolling to super cool third spec FM, it is important to let me know as soon as you know that you're going to switch. Simply because that does affect our party compositions and so forth. Because some people may like, maybe not. But if they actually decide to reroll to third spec FM, we will have to make some changes. And keep in mind, though, that people have a spot in this current composition because of the class they play. But if you are important buff or party iframe and you switch to something that we already have, you are now competing with every other FM in the raid in that she slot. So it does become a lot more difficult. So even if you, now granted, if you are not an important mech or what's it called, not a buff or party iframe or whatever, then there's much less of an issue than you just CPS, which is fine. So just keep those kind of things in mind. It is coming next month, so that is quickly approaching.
When Boss 3 is released, will that allow us to use raid buff?
I do not know. I unfortunately do not know those kind of things. So possibly, but who knows? They
It
did last
usually
time.
does open up on
Yeah.
the last boss release, but don't take our word for it because that's NC-soft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. If there is, though, that does increase our DPS nicely with those red pots. And res charms would be a godsend for many reasons.
Defense pots.
Defense pots.
Just
So-
take a hit.
Exactly. But until that happens, until so forth, we're going to go to under the assumption that we won't get them. But if we do, that will be really good news for us. Because them. Oh yeah, and if you don't do weeklies, make sure you do weeklies. Because those raid potions are actually extremely powerful. Yeah. So they're definitely worth making sure you have a set of those for raid. Both the red and yellow parts are really good. So
Microsoft is yelling at you. Ooh.
whatever. I don't want to pass by that. So, but anyway, yeah. So that's it for the meeting. Yeah, go ahead.
Can you post a link to the new spreadsheet or the?
I will. So this one I didn't post yet because I wasn't done with it. I had to make this one last minute because we had to change out the positions and so forth, and so I didn't get time to make it good or finish yet. But it was enough for me to go over the changes and so forth. I do plan on making this an animation, right? What I did before for the other part, which will probably make these pictures make more sense. But when I finish that and stuff, I'll post all of this for everyone to get reference and whatever. So, well, actually, what I'll probably do is I'll take the original one and then change it and put all these stuff. I only made a new one only because I didn't want to deal with trying to figure out where all the slides went. So basically, what I'll probably do is I will update the old one with the actual new stuff once I finished organizing everything else.
Okay.
Yeah. So, a good question.
I just wanted to study before tomorrow.
Yeah. So, any other last minute questions, concerns? Yeah. Make sure you upgrade, guys. Upgrade. It is too late, unfortunately. So you are locked in, Casey, for like the next 2 years.
Casey.
2 years, the fuck?